So you're saying that the shooting investigation of Alex Pretti is now a civil rights investigation. You're implying that that's always been the case. What about the shooting of Renee Good?
I didn't say it was always the case. I said it's the same thing that we said as of last Sunday. There are thousands, unfortunately, of law enforcement events every year where somebody is shot. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice does not investigate every one of those shootings. President Trump has said repeatedly, of course this is something we're going to investigate. That's what I meant about what we're doing. It doesn't mean that every time that there's a federal officer-related shooting that that's something civil rights takes up. It depends on the circumstances.
Can you kind of just characterize the scope of the Pretti investigation, what kinds of things that they'll be looking for?
It's an investigation, so what do we think we're looking at? We're looking at everything that would shed light on what happened that day and in the days and weeks leading up to what happened. And that's like any investigation that the Department of Justice and the FBI does every day, looking at videos, talking to witnesses, trying to understand what happened. I mean, you're talking about an incredibly tragic morning. Trying to unwind and investigate that it takes a lot of time. I'm not going to prejudice what they're doing or not doing by laying any markers, but I expect that the folks that are doing this are the most experienced in this space.
How would a civil rights investigation work with DHS taking the lead, which is what was said over the weekend? Prosecutors in Minnesota, I mean, who is involved in this? We know that there's a lot of frustration within the department, both in Minnesota and the Civil Rights Division, that they feel they are not being brought in and they are the experts here.
Every single federal agency, including DHS, has a process that they use when there's something like this that happens, an internal review, investigation, however you want to call it. That's what DHS was doing, as they do every single time something like this happened. There was nothing unique to these facts. There might have been outsized focus on it because of what happened, but DHS was doing an investigation. I don't know that that will stop. I don't expect that investigation to stop because we're investigating, and of course we're coordinating with them. We're not working against them, but there's I suppose potentially separate goals or potential goals in the two investigations. I mean, DHS is conducting an investigation and then the FBI conducts an investigation. It's not as if one goes one way and one goes the other, but they are their own investigations.
Very clearly said on Sunday that HSI is leading the investigation and he did not want to overstep and say anything. Was that not true anymore, or was that true at the time?
I don't think it's fair to say whether it's true anymore, okay? And I don't think it's also, I don't want to say who's lead or not lead. I don't even really know what that means in the course of an investigation. The FBI is investigating. They are for sure coordinating with Secretary Noem and her folks as well. And I expect DHS is also continuing their investigation to some extent. And there's outsized folks on this. This happens, like I said, thousands of times a year. And it is tragic every single time it happens. And it's tragic this time like it's tragic every other time. And so there is a process that has to be allowed to play out.
For transparency, would you commit to releasing body cam video from federal officers that was involved in that shooting and their names at a point when the investigation can allow that? Will you make that public? And I did not hear clarity on whether Renee Good's case is also in the civil rights realm.
I'm not committing to anything with respect to that investigation. That would be completely unfair to the investigation itself for me to stand here and commit to something for any reason. It depends. It depends on what happens with the investigation, and that's a decision that was made by the folks that are working the investigation. As it relates to Ms. Good, like I said before, there's investigations that happen all the time with respect to shootings like what happened last Saturday, and cases are handled differently by this department depending on the circumstances.
Can you clarify who at the Justice Department is involved in the Pretti investigation? Is it the Civil Rights Division? Is it the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota?
So I want to be careful I want to choose words carefully about involved. Investigations like this are led by law enforcement, so that's the FBI. There's coordination with the civil rights, with Harmeet Dillon's group, and there's trial attorneys there that this is their lives. They've done this for decades. And so to the extent there's questions during an investigation that require a trial attorney to weigh in, or if you need a civil rights attorney to draft a search warrant or help with an investigative process, I expect the Civil Rights Division here at Maine Justice will be part of that effort. I don't want to overstate what's happening. I don't want the takeaway to be that there's some massive civil rights investigation that's happening. This is what I would describe as a standard investigation by the FBI when there's circumstances like what we saw last Saturday, and that investigation, to the extent it needs to involve lawyers at the Civil Rights Division, it will involve those. All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
Do you have comment on the career prosecutors that are resigning in Minneapolis?